Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another incredible model. This is a model from a company that I absolutely adore. I have had quite a few reviews up, not too many, but a few over the years, and if you do not know what the company is, obviously you've seen it in the thumbnail and everything in the title of the video, but you can see Ancient Era Artistry. It does have a nice tag here on the neck, which obviously we'll remove once we paint it, but Ancient Era Artistry creates some of the absolute most fantastic prehistoric models that you will find anywhere. They are by far one of my favorite companies, one of my favorite sculptors. Matt is insanely good at what he does, and you can see that through the course of all of the models that I have reviewed here on the channel, always giving you memorable and honestly, again, incredible models time and time again, and we can see that here with this one, which is the Styracosaurus. Now, what's really cool about this, the Styracosaurus is actually titled Survivor. It is a 1/18th scale Styracosaurus. This is one of 5 when it comes to the pre-production, and I do have a certificate of authenticity over here, which I will show you in just a moment, but there's a little story that kind of goes along with the Styracosaurus. It states, "This is Lozin, the battle-hardened Styracosaurus, her scarred hide a testament to the countless trials she has endured. Once a fierce combatant in the primeval struggle for survival, she now stands resolute atop an igneous rock, surveying the land she has fought to claim. Her massive horned frill bears the marks of old skirmishes, each one a story of defiance and resilience. Her amber eyes burn with an indomitable wit. Lozin is a legend, a survivor, and a guardian of all that she surveys." So, really cool that they actually give you a little story, and that also, I think, kind of, just gives me enough information to get, like, an idea in my head as far as how I should paint the model, and obviously, really elaborate all the scars and stuff that she is bearing. Now, as I mentioned, this is a pre-production kit, so basically what that is it is the very first of the series of these models, and you actually have a number on the base. If we actually bring this up here, take the Styracosaurus off for just a moment, you can see here on the base we have a number. It states 1 out of 5. So when it comes to the pre-production versions, there will only be 5. This is the very first of all, which makes this one super special. Definitely something that I'm excited about, to have the very first of this Styracosaurus to be released. But again, it states that there will only be 5, so if you get one of the first 5 pre-production pieces, you will get this number on everything on it. After this point, once those 5 sell out, the numbers, I believe, disappear. It doesn't, give you any sort of like a limited edition number on the base or anything past that point. But it is important to keep in mind that when it comes to the Ancient Era Artistry models, the limited edition numbers are usually fairly low, so if you are interested, again, in grabbing this model, I wouldn't, spend all day thinking about it, I guess you could say. I would definitely grab it sooner rather than later. And also something interesting to note is, again, as I stated, this is 1/18th scale, and Ancient Era Artistry is actually working to offer all of their models that they have released so far in 1/18th scale, and that includes some of the models that I've reviewed in the past, like the twinning and the rexoning and stuff like that. So if you have been, thinking of getting some more of their models in your collection, maybe you really like the 1/18th scale range, you can go ahead and order those very soon. But what is also cool is they're actually working on top of that to create pretty much any scale you want. Like the 1/18th scale models will be offered on the website, but if you contact them and request a different scale, they will give you a model in that scale. So if you only collect one certain scale, one certain range, you can get that from Ancient Era Artistry, which I think is something that not very many people do, which makes Ancient Era Artistry even more impressive and kind of like a cut above the rest when it comes to pleasing their customers. But again, this Styracosaurus looks absolutely drop dead gorgeous. It is so nicely sculpted, and when we get nice and close to my camera, I was going to say refuses to focus on it, and then right when I go to say that, it focuses. You can see how good the detail on this looks. You'll also notice, just like with the story that was told, all of the scars here on the face of the Styracosaurus. There are obviously numerous. We can see kind of right under the horn right there. We can even see some moving down here into the lower jaw there on the beak, some more moving along the lower jaw in general. So lots, of stories, I guess, to be told when it comes to the lifetime of this Styracosaurus. We can see the nostrils sculpted out very nicely. We've got some smoother skin in that section, but you can also see a few little bumpy osteoderms popping up. Really impressive fine detail within the beak of the Styracosaurus as well. That actually might be some of the best detail I've ever seen in the beak of a ceratopsian, so super impressive. We can see the mouth is slightly open, but not open all that far. As we move back, we've got the eye sculpted really nicely, which we now know is an amber eye, stating, in the story there. We can see a few bumpy horns up here above the top of the head of the Styracosaurus. And then moving further back into the head, we continue to see, again, super impressive skin texture throughout, as well as more horns. And I love that some of the horns are, like, sort of chipped and stuff. Like, again, just showing more realism and adding to the story of this Styracosaurus. Moving back further into the head, you continue to see the super impressive skin texture. You can also see more horns and everything popping up. Of course, it is a Styracosaurus, so you're going to see that. And I love that, little things on this model, like the horns. Some of the horns are kind of chipped, and some of them have kind of like scars and stuff on them as well, just kind of like scratches and nicks taken out of them, just adding even more realism to the model and adding more to the story and the lifetime of this Styracosaurus. And as we move through, you can see, again, even the horns are incredibly highly detailed. Like, there is no shortage of fine detail and little tiny extra touches to the model, like these injuries and stuff throughout, that really shows off the time and effort that went into making sure that this Styracosaurus was far and away one of the most impressive Styracosaurus models on the market anywhere. And as you move down into the frill, you see even more damage, as well as some more nice looking skin texture and some slight clusters of scales here moving along the center, kind of like osteoderm like scales moving along the center of the frill. As we move along, you again still see the very nice looking fine detail throughout the horns. This one's definitely going to be really fun to paint, and it's also, in my opinion, one of the most iconic ceratopsians ever, so that makes it even cooler. Again, who doesn't love a Styracosaurus? And when you look over here, you can still see again just how incredible this looks. And I always love how vibrant the actual casts are from Ancient Era Artistry. Like, you can just really see that Matt uses the highest quality resin when 3D printing his models, making sure to capture every ounce of detail perfectly. And as you move up through that horn, you can see the horn again featuring scars, also again featuring very impressive fine detail and texturing. As we move back here into the neck, first of all, we can see the tag kind of sitting here in our way a little bit, but you can see all sorts of skin wrinkles and folds as you move down here into the throat of the dinosaur, looking really quite nice. We can also see some wrinkling in the skin, as the Styracosaurus does have its head turned a little bit toward its left. As we continue to lead back, you start to see some very impressive scale detail picking up. As you move up higher into the Styracosaurus, the scales get a good bit larger, and you can also see osteoderms and stuff kind of mixing within all of the different scales on the Styracosaurus. We can also see a line of scutes following along the spinal column as well, that you can very easily see up there, definitely shining quite nicely. But as you move down into the lower part of the body, you start to see the scales decrease in size quite drastically. They become a lot smaller as you lead down. And I'm also noticing, as we've seen in the face, all sorts of scars and slight injuries and stuff throughout the body of the Styracosaurus as well. Like, you can really see tons of small injuries that this dinosaur has sustained over its lifetime. And obviously, it's a fairly older version of a Styracosaurus, so many stories that could be told by this dinosaur as you move through its body. You can also see some nice skin wrinkles here, as the leg is kind of pushing into the stomach right there, wrinkling that skin up in front of the thigh and knee area. Leading down, you've got the elbow nicely highlighted right there. And then as you lead into the foot sculpt, you've got the toes sculpted out nicely, some wrinkling in the skin here on the wrist area, and the nails as well sculpted quite nicely right there on the feet. And just look at that. Like, you can honestly kind of get like a sense of the skin, sort of like just feeling the impact of the weight of the Styracosaurus as it stands there and kind of like scrunching down the skin of the toes. Like, that's fine detail and very small attention to detail that you normally don't see from most artists, which again is one of the many reasons I'm always so impressed with Ancient Era Artistry. As you move up, you can see the hip bone up here, again protruding through the skin. You can also see all sorts of varying sizes to the scales as you lead along. Obviously, this one had to have taken a very long time to sculpt just based on the sheer amount of scale detail you see through the model. We have very nice muscle definition in the thigh as well as the calf as we lead down. A few more trailing osteoderms leading into the thigh. You can see the kneecap right there. And then as you lead down into the foot, we can obviously see the foot is kind of slanted, and you'll see why, because it's actually standing up like this, kind of moving up onto a rock, in case you didn't notice when we were first taking a look at it right there. And you can see again, focus, there we go, the foot sculpt of the dinosaur, the toes and everything, the nails really nicely sculpted, and even looking like it's had like kind of a little bit of, injuries down here in the toes as well. Man, he really did such a great job on the overall impressive realism of this model. And as you move back, you again see more scale detail as well as more osteoderms, and the skin texture becoming a whole lot finer as we lead out into the tail. We still have those scoots following along the top of the Styracosaurus, but the scales become super fine as you lead out into the ending there of the tail. And you can see a very different style of skin texture to the underside of our Styracosaurus as you move along. I love that it has this like little section that's kind of like separate from the rest of the dinosaur, sporting a very different style of skin texture moving along that area. That looks really neat. And then as we move over here again, you've got a really nice shot there of that gorgeous head sculpt. You can also see when it comes to the skin on the neck, we did see a little bit more wrinkling and creasing on the other side, whereas over here we see a little bit more kind of stretching and tensing because the dinosaur is turning its head away from us. And you can also see a little bit more kind of like saggy hanging skin there in the neck. As we move back into the body, again, the scales pick up. Of course, you've got all sorts of very large scales and osteoderms that again decrease in size as you move further down into the body, closer to the legs and the lower part of the stomach of the Styracosaurus. We can also see again the positioning of the leg shows how the dinosaur is kind of like walking up onto that rock, which looks really nice. Again, the foot sculpt looks excellent as you move down. You can see a little bit more kind of skin wrinkling and folding there in the stomach because this leg is sort of pushing into the stomach a little bit right there, making sure to capture every ounce of movement perfectly on this dinosaur. And as you move back again, the hip bone, the musculature and everything. But what I really quite like is you can see how this leg is basically like just about to pick up off of the ground. So if we look over here, you can see this foot seems to be like supporting a large amount of the weight of the dinosaur as it's already stepped up and it's, about to push up off of this one little rock there. So you can really see how the muscles are tensing in the rear leg. But if you look over here, although you can see the muscle definition, it's not nearly as tensed because it wouldn't be tensing the muscles so much over here. Like that's impressive little things to these models that really show you that not only does Matt really pay attention, but he also makes sure that it looks as real as possible. I honestly don't know if you'll find more realistic dinosaurs anywhere outside of Ancient Era Artistry. And you can see again the knee as you move down. You've got the really nice looking foot sculpt here again as you lead down, and of course the toes and nails and everything. And then we lead out here into the tail. There's a very impressive wound right here. This one looks like it's probably a fresh wound, maybe a bite mark or something that it has sustained at some point, maybe just a puncture wound of like some claws, but that looks fresh to me, so I'll probably paint that one out to kind of look bloody. So it has a more recent wound along with lots of scars and stuff. But as you lead out into the tail, you can see how the tail now curves away from us again toward the more dominant side of the Styracosaurus. So I would say without a doubt that is the most realistic and most beautiful Styracosaurus that I now have. And then of course you also have the base, and the base is basically just a nice little earthy area. You've got all sorts of rocks and gravel and everything basically down here, and you can see again that we have these larger rocks where our Styracosaurus is kind of stepping up onto. Basically you have two peg holes here for the rear feet, which you may or may not have noticed when we were taking a closer look at it there. And then as you move up, you can see basically the mark for the foot to go up onto when it comes to the front foot of our Styracosaurus as it sort of, walks up onto this small ledge here, this big rock that we have, basically just trying to kind of get a look around and check things out, I guess. And overall, again, the actual base is probably as highly detailed as the Styracosaurus itself. When it comes to texturing on a base, like, I dare dare you to try to find a more impressive looking base for any dinosaur when it comes to the actual texturing of the dirt and rocks and everything. Like, that is super, super realistic and impressive. And obviously it doesn't cease from any angle as you kind of turn the base and look at it. It is just jaw-dropping from every angle. That is a fantastic and extremely realistic base. So we are at the point now where I'm going to go ahead, get this painted up, and then we'll come back and check it out once it's finished. So I have my Styracosaurus finished. I have it painted and everything, and I'm excited to show it to you guys. But the other thing I want to show you is actually the certificate of authenticity. I mentioned this earlier and then did not show it to you then. So as you can see, this is something you will get if you do in fact order from Ancient Era Artistry. You can see again, you would get a well, for this one, again, it is the pre-production model kit, and it is a 1/18th scale Survivor Styracosaurus, and you can see some information about this, and the fact that, again, this is #1 in the limited edition. So it's really, really cool to be able to have something like this to go along with your model. And then here is my finished Styracosaurus, and giving you guys a nice, well, apparently I need to back the camera up, nice chance to really see what my paintwork looks like for it and just how much it really comes to life once you actually do add some paintwork to it. I'm really quite happy with my paint job on this one. I tried to kind of go for like that old, sort of a little bit faded, kind of dirty and sort of rough and rugged looking Styracosaurus. Basically, I tried to create this in a way that coincides with the story that is told about the Styracosaurus, and I feel like, again, it turned out pretty nice. I definitely captured what I was going for as far as I'm concerned, and again, the model, the detail on the model is just so good. It really does paint itself, as they say. If we actually pop it here off of the base, I have the pegs in there, so I kind of have to ease them out. Boy, they're really in there, which is definitely a good thing. It'll definitely keep the model nice and safe and sound, but once you get nice and close, I just kind of wanted to show you guys what it looks like with the actual paintwork on it so that you can get a nice appreciation for how good the detail and everything looks on the Styracosaurus once it's actually painted. Get a nice close shot there. You can really see again how impressive all of the detail on this model is. It is super, super impressive if my camera will focus on it to show you guys. And as you move through the horns, you can see again all of the incredible fine detail. When Matt sculpts out one of his models, he really makes sure to sculpt it out in the most realistic way possible with the absolute most amount of detail possible. And you can see that no matter what angle you look at this Styracosaurus from, no matter what side you see it from, you can really see how impressive it is. And again, as you move back into the body, you can see all of the incredible scales and everything that are applied to the model. You can also see all of the scars. Some of them I've painted out, some of them I've just basically left the color that they were once the paint was added, because I kind of wanted it to look like, you know, scars that maybe have blended into the body a little bit more, so you don't notice them as much. And then there are, of course, other scars that kind of stand out a little more as I've added a little bit of paintwork to those. I also went ahead and painted this area out, gave it a little bit of like a gloss coat to sort of give it the look of being a recent injury again, because I just felt like that's what that kind of looked like to me. And the detail on the underside, again, is super nicely done. Very, very impressive as a whole. And this is, again, far and away one of the most beautiful Styracosaurus models that I have ever seen and probably will ever see. And then, of course, you also have the base, and you can see the base looks extraordinarily beautiful once you get some paintwork on it, and you really help to again make all of the detail pop in a nice realistic way. You can see how good the texturing looks and all of the rocks and stones and everything that you have, as well as these larger rocks. I painted out some moss and stuff on the rocks to kind of give it the look of maybe being like, you know, just outside of a forested area, and then also painted this out so that we can see again the limited edition number and everything as far as the pre-production version goes. And again, it is an absolutely gorgeous base that just goes so nicely with the Styracosaurus. And then, of course, once you put the Styracosaurus back on, you have the little pegs on the undersides of the feet. You basically just have to match those up, and then slide it back in, and there we go. It is now back on the base and looking really, really awesome as our Styracosaurus is just kind of, stepping up onto the ledge. As far as a size goes, it is, again, quite sizable. I don't know where the best spot would be. I guess from the beak to the tail, you are looking at around 10 3/4 inches, or a little bit over 27 centimeters would be my estimate for the length from the beak to the tail. It might have been a little bit longer, obviously, if I had gone to the horn. But if we go for a height, I think the highest point would be that horn, right around 8 inches, or about 20.5 centimeters. If we go to the horns, oh no, I was wrong. So for the horns on the top of the frill, which you can't even see at this point, it's about 8.5 inches, or around 21.5 centimeters. But for a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect Day human being next to our Ancient Era Artistry Styracosaurus. And you can see again, it's definitely at 1/18th scale, quite an impressively sized model. Definitely really stands out when it comes to how large it is. And then for a size comparison next to a few other ceratopsians that are fairly popular, here we have the Schleich which is obviously a lot smaller. And if we try to bring in a larger ceratopsian, we have the Howalong Good Triceratops, which you can see as well is, again, a bit smaller than our Styracosaurus. Same case if we bring in the Papo Triceratops, again, quite a bit smaller than our Styracosaurus. And then, of course, if you are looking for a Styracosaurus comparison specifically, we also have the Papostyracosaurus, which is clearly quite a bit smaller. And when it comes to Styracosaurus, the majority of Styracosaurus figures out there are probably going to be a bit smaller than our Ancient Era Artistry version, which we can see here as well with the PNSO Styracosaurus. It's not until you get into some larger Styracosaurus models like this, which is the X Plus version, you can see is quite a bit larger. If you have like the Dinosaurius Sideshow Styracosaurus or this X Plus version, I think that, those are pretty much the only Styracosaurus, at least as far as the ones that I have in my collection, that are going to be a bit larger than our Ancient Era Artistry version. But something else that is incredibly cool that Ancient Era Artistry offers that I would highly recommend picking up is this, which we can see over here. This is the Gawker's model, which is basically a few different human figures in 1/18th scale. Now what's cool about this is the fact that you can then take it next to the 1/18th scale models of Ancient Era Artistry and pretty much any other company, of course, that produces 1/18th scale models like the Beasts of the Mesozoic and stuff. And you can then, get a basically like an accurate size comparison next to a human being with the model then again when you display them next to each other. So that's a really cool idea on the part of Ancient Era Artistry. And if you actually bring that in, you can see how good even the detailing of the humans look. And I love the fact that we actually have, whoa, focus, there we go, one of the humans here holding an Ancient Era Artistry case book. I'm not sure what that is. Yeah, it looks like maybe a book, but it does have Ancient Era Artistry, again, the logo right there on the front, which is really cool. We also have someone holding a child and then an adult male here in the background. And even that has kind of like the earthy area that you might see next to the Styracosaurus. So it almost kind of gives you the feel of recreating Jurassic Park or something, where some humans are basically standing off to the sidelines looking at a real living dinosaur. And as you move through, again, you can see how absolutely incredible the sculpts are, even of them, and you can see all the sorts of wrinkles and folds in the clothing, basically capturing every ounce of their movement perfectly in time here, which again shows you just how incredible of a sculptor Matt really is when he can sculpt not only incredible dinosaurs, but also incredible humans as well. I was considering painting this, but I don't know that I could really do this justice because I'm not too great at painting humans, so I'm not too sure if I'm going to paint this one quite yet, but I love having it. It is an absolutely excellent addition to any of these 1/18th scale models from Ancient Era Artistry. So again, definitely something I would recommend grabbing from them. If you are interested in that, you can purchase that as well. And again, it would scale, like I said, correctly with most of the Beasts of the Mesozoic and stuff like that. And even, I would think, a good amount of the Mattel figures, I believe, are in a similar scale as well. So this Ancient Era Artistry Survivor, the Styracosaurus model in 1/18 1/18th scale is absolutely fantastic and is without a doubt one of the nicest Styracosaurus models you will ever find. Sculpt-wise, it is fantastic, and it portrays such a really cool story, which is something else that I really love about this. I love the fact that Matt has gone ahead and created an actual story to go with the model, so that kind of gives you basically a rough idea of how you could paint it to sort of, extend that story a little bit to the actual model itself, but at the same time, you could pretty much go whatever route you want as far as painting it. But I chose to kind of replicate what I felt like was what they were explaining in the story of the Styracosaurus, and I'm really quite happy again with the way it turned out. But the majority of the reason I'm happy about it is because the detail on this is so gorgeous. It is without a doubt probably the most highly detailed Styracosaurus that I have. There's just so much when it comes to the fine detail that will blow your mind when you're looking at it. Again, all the different variations to the scales, the very nice, very fine skin wrinkles and skin folds, all of the scars and injuries, and again, even open injuries and everything throughout the course of the Styracosaurus are beyond impressive. And we also have just generally a really cool pose, as it's kind of walking up onto a ledge, which I think looks really nice, kind of up onto a rocky little formation there. And of course, the base is absolutely fantastic. Just as usual, the bases of the Ancient Era Artistry models are always next level, especially when it comes to replicating a real earthy look. And I think he's done a great job in every area, whether it be the stones or the rocks or even the moss and everything that's on it. It just looks about as lifelike as it gets, and just as lifelike as the Styracosaurus itself. And of course, once it's all combined together and you actually paint it up, it looks incredible. So this is definitely going to proudly sit up here on my shelf, being one of the best ceratopsians that I have overall. If you are interested in this, of course, I will include links in the description to all of the social media accounts as well as the website of Ancient Era Artistry, where you can check them out. Definitely contact them, order yourself one of these unbelievable Styracosaurus, and comment and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.